Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast, one of the shooting world's biggest gun talk programs. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent T. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting folks who make up the world of shooting, hunting, law enforcement, and the firearms industry. But first, let's hear a word from our sponsor, 4 Patriots Food Kits. Last year, experts wrote that a food shortage could be coming, even in the U.S., but you don't have to worry about it if you create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. Hand-packed in the USA, the kits are compact and stack easily, and they offer many different and delicious breakfast, lunch, and dinners. Right now, in an exclusive offer to Guns Magazine podcast listeners, go to 4patriots.com and use the code GUNMAG to get 10% off your first purchase. That's the number 4, the word patriots.com. Use the code GUNMAG.
Hey y'all, it's Ashley McGee, the digital editor for Guns Magazine. I know that I'm not the voice that you're used to hearing each week. Brent is on assignment, but I am told he'll be back in the saddle for the next episode. So this week's podcast is one from the archives. It first aired as episode number 130, titled The Day I Got Shot. Story of when Brent ended up in the hospital while testing a gun. It's a cautionary tale of the dangers of going to the range by yourself and the wrong way to handle an injury. Now, here's one of our listener favorites, Brent talking about the day he got shot.
The Day I Got Shot, from the April 2022 issue of Guns Magazine by Brent T. Whenever your workday involves evaluation by 2 trauma surgeons, you probably should have stayed in bed. Let me explain. One day last spring, I pulled into the range and was pleased to see it empty. By virtue of being honorably retired from the police department, I have access to our non-public police shooting range whenever the department isn't using the facility. After setting up my targets and my portable shooting table, I got the gun that shall remain nameless out of its case. All was ready to test fire this latest revolutionary firearm that will change the industry, at least this week. I loaded up a couple of magazines and shoved one into the gun. The sun smiled down, a gentle wind blew, and I think a bluebird flew past as I dropped the bolt into battery and shouldered the gun. Click. I immediately ran the bolt and tried again. Click. Growing confounded, I ran the bolt one more time. As my fingers released the operating lever, things got interesting. As the bolt picked up the next round from the magazine, there was a demonstration of common high school physics. 2 objects cannot physically occupy the same space at the same time. In this case, the 2 objects were cartridges. The first had stubbornly remained sitting in the chamber, while the newcomer insolently slammed into its rear. The round in the chamber exploded, while the second, not wanting to miss out on the fun, likewise detonated. Instantly, I knew something had gone massively wrong. My chest and hands were numb, my shooting glasses had been knocked askew, and my ears were ringing in spite of hearing protection. It was then I noticed several jagged shards of brass sticking out of my forearm. Dang it, I thought to myself with a calm I didn't know I possessed. It was immediately apparent I had experienced an out-of-battery detonation, something I had seen happen before, and I knew it wasn't wholly uncommon. So, okay, I thought to myself, it happens. Hitch up your foundation garments, safe the gun, and pick the brass out of your arm. No big deal. Remembering my training from the cop shop days, I thought it prudent to inspect myself for other injuries, because I've known people who had been shot or seriously injured and didn't even know it at first. I told myself I was being a little overly dramatic for such a mundane event, but I performed the self-check anyway. My stomach felt a little numb, but I thought that was just due to the concussion of the not inconsiderable blast. Rubbing around under my shirt and feeling no bits of metal or other debris, I nonchalantly thought, I must have spilled my water bottle when that happened. Then I realized I didn't have a water bottle with me. In horror, I saw my 3 left fingers were slicked with bright red blood. My blood, the sweet, sweet, precious fluid, the very essence of life. It's one of my most important possessions and something I really don't want to see anywhere outside of a test tube at the doctor's office. Now I looked down and it was slowly spreading like lava across the front of my khaki shirt. Such things get your attention. Well, I thought almost matter-of-factly, I've been shot in the stomach with a large caliber bullet. Then the magnitude of my predicament struck me. As a practicing hypochondriac who is wholly capable of turning a minor gas pain into a fatal case of liver flukes, this realization positively set me over the edge. In a split second, I knew I was dying, and the thought made me inexplicably angry rather than upset or afraid. A few seconds later, though, good sense returned and I got scared spitless. You'll notice I said spitless. Fortunately, after a minute or so of panic and hyperventilation, I suddenly remembered what a nameless instructor told me a long time ago. If you're worried about how bad you're hurt, you're not hurt that bad. It was strangely calming advice. I then lifted my shirt and examined the new 3/8-inch belly button just above the factory original. It was bleeding, but not gushing or spurting, so loss of blood, at least externally, wasn't really the immediate problem. I had concerns about the damage done to my innards, but after a few seconds of studying my pulse rate, breathing, and checking for signs of liver flukes, I decided it might be serious, but not immediately. Getting down to business, I knew I needed help, and a call to 911 seemed prudent. As I picked up my cell phone and started to dial, I suddenly realized a dispatch of "man shot on the police firing range" would bring medics, the fire department, the police and sheriff's department. They would soon be followed by local and regional media, a host of random red light chasers, and probably a food truck marching band and Dog the Bounty Hunter with a full camera crew. I really didn't feel like being the star of such a 9-ring circus, so I just loaded up my truck, admittedly rather rapidly and haphazardly, and drove myself to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I called a friend who was working as the afternoon supervisor on the police department. When I told him of my situation, he was incredulous. "Pull over now," he said, "and I'll drive you in." In my best John Wayne manner, I said, "Nah, it's just a flesh wound, and I'll meet you at the ER. I'm fine." I mostly meant it. We both arrived at the ER at the same time, and in meeting him in the parking lot, I could tell he was impressed with my bloody shirt and rampant machismo, or something analogous to that. I will say one enjoyable moment was when the young nursing student at the front door, who was charged with enforcing COVID mask protocols and temperature checks, blurted out the classic, "Are you okay?" Well, not really, but thanks for asking. Inside, I was officially declared a GSW, that's medical shorthand for gunshot wound, and hustled inside the ER for various tests, but only after I bled a little on the admittance desk. Here's one medical tip. If you encounter a long wait at the ER, try mentioning you've been shot. It'll move you right up to the front of the line just behind the heart attack victims. It made the day go much quicker than I expected. As I was quite healthy in the grand scheme of things, it was kind of exciting to witness all the medical drama as the guest of honor. I'd have enjoyed it more if not for the whole hot lead in the guts thing. After a couple of hours and a full battery of tests, the ER doctor entered the trauma room once again, where my wife and I were practicing our lamentations, to happily announce, "Well, today is your lucky day." "Pardon me if I don't share your enthusiasm," I said rather curtly. The doctor went on to explain, after consultation with both the local surgeon and regional trauma experts in nearby capital city, an operation wasn't necessary. It turned out a chunk of metal, likely the part of the thick head portion of one shell casing, had entered my abdomen, but had stopped 1 millimeter from burrowing into what is technically known as the guts. If the piece had entered with just a smidgen more gusto, I'd have been winging my way south to a level 1 trauma center for emergency surgery. I grudgingly went along with her perspective regarding my fate. Most surprising to me was the fact that no treatment was necessary aside from keeping the wound clean and watching for infection. I later discovered, by asking every single doctor of my acquaintance, including a PhD in crop science, that it was standard procedure to leave shrapnel in place, as there's often a greater danger of complications from surgically rooting around rather than just leaving it alone. Thus, with a new tetanus shot and a butt full of antibiotics, I went home. Now, today, I'm fine, though occasionally an odd movement will bring a reminder of one formerly fine spring afternoon. The piece of brass is still there, and my doctor tells me it will likely someday surface on its own, an event I simply can't wait to experience. Physically, there are no other after effects, though occasional bouts of hypochondria have me wondering when the brass will suddenly migrate to someplace important and instantly kill me. At least that gives me something real to worry about besides deadlines and liver flukes.
Thanks for listening. Again, I'm Ashley McGee, digital editor for Guns Magazine. And like I said before, Brent will be back next week, provided we can find someone to post his bail.
If there's a topic you want to hear, somebody you'd like us to interview, or you want to share your thoughts, please drop me a line at editor@gunsmagazine.com. As always, you can find us on your favorite podcast directories such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, and several others. And there is also YouTube and at gunsmagazine.com. You can also subscribe to the Gun Cranks audio podcast on those same directories, or watch it at the Gun Cranks YouTube channel. And while you're online, don't forget to check out our great sister publications, American Handgunner Magazine at AmericanHandgunner.com, AmericanCop.com, and our numerous special editions available for sale on our websites and at Amazon. And before we go, I'd like to remind you to visit our sponsor, 4Patriots Survival Food Kits. You can find out more about their great food kits at 4patriots.com. That's the number 4, the word patriots.com. That's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. For the entire staff at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. Now get out there and get shooting.